Okay, it is the first sneak preview of the first Altered Instruments bent video mixer or product. Working on a few things simultaneously. I will do a separate video that kind of shows the hardware internals of what I'm doing and kind of the extra things I'm doing, such as cleaning all the faders and making sure the unit is working perfectly and testing caps. We'll get into the tech stuff later and a bit more about my background and what I'm trying to offer here besides just bending stuff. And let's get into the mixer. Here on the primary screen we have the erogenous tone structure putting out a grayscale image with some slow modulation. And this is the mixer. There we go, in bypass mode, so no processing going on or enhancement is right there. And I have added 3 touch points here. I may add more here. I'm not quite convinced it's needed. As I said, this mixer is probably 95% finished, and I just wanted to shoot a quick preview while I have some quiet in the house. But basically, you can bypass it. You have 2 inputs, VCR1 and VCR2 as it's called here, which is input 2 and input 1 on the side. I primarily use the input on the back because that way you just have everything facing out the back, and it's just more compact. You can still use input 1. Actually, we can show that now. Might freak out my camera's focus because the camera's way too close to the screen, but I've got a Edirol V4 doing some feedback plus in preview, so you can see some white text, make it a little more familiar for everybody. And then you can switch back to VCR2 if you wanted to. But we'll get into looking at some of the stuff I'm doing later. Bit of history on this product. I'm jumping around a little bit too much. Let's talk about the feature set. So what I have is 10 switches. Switches are either momentary in the downward position. Let's say show one here. Boom, down, spring loaded, or they latch in the upward position. I have on switches 7 and 8 a dual pole triple throw switch. So 7 goes through one side and 8 through the other. Mostly because these 2 bends almost never work well together. It's probably a few that where they do. So I would use either or, and then you have a switch to switch between different resistors and capacitors and filtering circuits I built in there. The bypass switch is pretty close to right where I've set it here. This is the master enhanced. You can see when it gets too bright, my camera kind of freaks out a bit. So we can increase that, and you see it waving. That is not on the screen, actually. Just the camera struggling with the luminosity there. So that is pretty much stock. I have added what I call a crash mixer. It's kind of, sort of, like the Karl Klomp dirty mixer, except I'm using the internal circuitry. And it takes VCR1 or input 1 on the side and blends it into the background of VCR2. You can also just use VCR1 and then use this a little bit to have some slight effect, but you're gonna have to experiment because all of this is fairly interactive with each other, and how certain bends work on input 1 differs from input 2 to a degree. There's also audio reactivity, which is what this is, and we will listen to this a bit later. Only the synth sound, it's a Buchla with varying frequencies, has an effect. The drums I'm routing separately, they don't actually go into this mixer. Or else it just makes too much of a mess. But if you want, you'll see with the low frequency nodes and high frequency, it's different, and those go in here. I've wired this up to take advantage of the bit of extra gain on the microphone channel, but you can put audio in anywhere, and it all goes post-fader, post-master fader, so you can actually mix in different sources and have it affect the video. And the audio reactivity is here on switches 9 and 10. And other bends are basically just mutating the video. So you can bring in CD audio if you wish, and also mix that in. And sometimes on one of these, I think it's 9, if you ground these out all the way, because of how they're wired into the circuit, it has an effect on the video, even if you're not putting audio in. So you do have to play with things a little bit. In most cases, if you just leave the audio nearly off, it's out of the system anyhow. And then we have touch points. So these are all going to the same point, and depending on what you are bending, increased surface area will make a more dramatic change. So you'll have to experiment with that. But these three are going to the same point and are meant to be used in conjunction with each other. So, but let's just get right into it. We have structure coming in on input number 2 in the back. And these bends some of them will be subtle at first. Here is latching switch 1, or momentary, which you could do in time to music if you felt like it. On switch 3, we have a change in polarity through the cap. The cap is not a polarized cap, but it goes through the legs in the opposite direction here, and it doesn't show like it's doing much, but when you put in other bends, you can see it starts increasing darkness or doing things, and we'll play with this one more. It's more of a modifier for the other ones. We'll skip these two for now. Jump over here to number 6, which is a modifier for number 7. Number 7, when we put it on, it usually does not like to be in the down position if other bends are not going on. And here you can see it's killing the input just a bit. Well, more than just a bit. But if we put it on with 8, both of those on with number 6, you get this almost like negative imaging thing. And the colors are much more vivid and dark on screen than they are on the camera, unfortunately. If we turn off 8, it goes back to being a bit more normal. 6, 7, 8 with 7. And then we have, of course, our touch sensitivity here. We could do things in time with music if we felt like it. Let's look at 8 alone. So this is one filtering circuit, this is another filtering circuit, and this is another filtering circuit. And this one I really like. It does this milky blur. And then if you throw in, even without audio passing, number 9, or momentary if you wanted to, and then number 10, it gets really dark. And with something that's a touch more animated, it leaves a bit of a smoky trail. See if I can do that. On dark shapes. I may have to do it with one of the color ones I know where it works really well. Looks almost like some kind of a strange X-ray image of something, or an endoscope. Gross. There that is, and we can change filtering circuits. 3 choices. This one will introduce feedback trails when certain things are happening. You'll see. Let's see if I can get one going here. Oh, there we go. Nice. I think maybe I'll have to switch to a color one to get a bit more luminosity, and you'll see some ringing effects on edges with that. And then you can play with the master effects, which causes my camera to kind of bug out. And you can find some sweet spots like that that will sometimes pulse between negative color or blending in orange, like down here. But soft strobing, you see, is not actually on the monitor. It is a little bit, but not as much as the camera is showing. The camera's having a hard time with focus now. We'll turn these bends off. Let us take a peek at one of my favorite effects. This is great. So switch number 4. Oh, something else is on. There we go. Switch number 4. Watch what happens as you turn up master effects. Get these white edges coming in everywhere. And then number 5 is a modifier for it. This number 5 switch only works if number 4 is engaged. And it either does something quite super obvious like that, or sometimes just a tiny bit of additional fudging. Let's take a look at some audio. Let's bring in the audio on. Let's try 10. And you'll see, in a frequency dependent manner, these waves being introduced. And as you raise it really high, you'll see this line that comes in, and you can move it around with the, I'm trying to get it to bounce right on the orange edge, but you can move it around with the faders. And you can go a little too hard like that. And the high frequencies will have the most effect. You'll see it really destroys sync to some degree. In some cases, when you have color image on there, it'll switch to black and white bars, which is really cool. So that's switch 10. Let's just put on switch 9 now. You get a slightly different effect. And then you can put in other effects as well. So we'll put in switch 3. You can see the ringing now. Maybe it's a little too hardcore there. Look at all that feedback ringing that happens. Put on 9 and 10. Take 10 off. Take 9 off. Switch 1. Oh, I didn't even show the blending in input 1, so let's do that. Input 1 connected. Oh, don't switch to input 1. Turn on input blender. There we go. So obviously that's just done for demo purposes, so you can see some text and then the feedback wipes in the background. I mean, use your creativity to come up with something cooler. I just want something easily recognizable. So it's blending in the color from the background onto the monochrome or grayscale image. And you can tune it a bit with this knob, kind of decreases intensity a touch. Or go full blast and the color really comes shimmering through. And these bends, I've tried to make it so that they don't lose sync. Sometimes, especially on 7 and 8, you will, depending on the filtering circuit, but these filters were chosen based upon other combinations going on. So let's get rid of this guy. And again, that's what it looks like in the back. And we can bend these as well. So this is, let me make sure no bends are on here. So this is bend 1. Bend 3. Very slight darkening, bend 1 and 3. And yeah, it is losing focus. The focus is not just the camera. That kind of blurry thing is happening due to the bends. We can put on our white little trails again. We have our touch sensitivity again. 1, 2, 3 points. Can add 5 is now putting white trails onto the blue. Six. Probably too much going on. 7 always kind of sucks on the lowest setting. You can see the audio really having an effect because of the way it's patched into the circuit. You can turn these off. Let's bring the audio back in without grounding things out. Bring our white trails back in. You can see how severe you can make the audio reactivity. Be a little over the top when you have a lot of bends going on, but that's just, hey, you're totally freaking the circuit out. Is a little bit more stable here. Back to input 2. Crash the mixer in again. So now inputs 1 and 2. So yeah, there's just so many different little combinations a person can do here. Lots to explore for yourself. Turn all of these off. Turn on number 8. Look at that. Let's take a look at, well, we're seeing some good color now, but let's look at a really colorful, turn all these bends off. Put it into bypass so you can, oops, so you can see what bypass looks like. So that's our stock, slightly, it's out of focus again on the camera, but shotta. We're gonna switch to color anyway. Let's try this guy. Camera's, yeah, focusing better, cool. That's pretty much in focus. And watch what happens when we go back to favorite switch number 4 with the white trails as the colors change. Oh yeah, bypass, haha. Switch 5 being the modifier, switch 3, switch 1, sometimes switch 8 is cool in this mode. A bit too much. There's some cool stuff in there, maybe for stills. Switch 7. Turn off the white trails. Turn them back on. There's the feedback edge ringing again. Oops, sorry, but that number 3 does. Switch number 3. The ringing. Knocking over cans, why not? Audio reactivity will bring back in. And you'll see that that line on the vertical line follows the input off into the midpoint. Let's see, switch 7 gives us anything cool. Nope. 8. Nice, it goes back to the milky thing again. And don't forget to turn the enhance way down, because you'll sometimes get some really cool stuff. It's very fun to find places where you'll stumble across some color inversions, or the audio reactivity will switch things to black and white. Which is right there. Now we got that. See if a slower sequence does anything for us. So that's full blast with switch number 10. All kinds of stuff to explore here. Switch 9. Another audio reactivity one. See if we can get that smoky look again. Too much going on. So that is bypass. That is on. See how grainy it gets when you turn down the master. Here it gets full blast is nice and clean, and then it gets grainier and grainier, and then of course touch sensitivity. So everything in conjunction with Video Enhance Master is just fantastic. Get rid of the audio here. And what happens? Where did I put the cable? Oh, it's on the ground. If we do the crash mixer, jamming this in. Oh, cool. You can do it. No, you cannot do it. There's that smoky effect again. All liquidy. Let's try a... Oops, no wait. Let's try turning these off again. What's another cool image? Let's do this guy. Looking good. Maybe. There we go. So if you had music going, do it manually. There's the ringing on the edges again. And you see, this is a perfect example of in momentary position versus latched. The huge difference, and that's with a non-polarized capacitor. So I think it goes, I don't remember, I have to look inside. I think it's changes the direction of resistor into, which is first, resistor and cap or cap and resistor? Gorgeous. Oh yeah. Destruction. Turn that down just a touch. Look at that. Cool. So again, these bends are, you you can learn certain things as to what is slightly predictable, but the intensity, the luminosity, the amount of colors, the color palette changes things. When you're doing the grayscale versus very colorful things, look at, I mean, this is just morphing all on its own as it introduces more colors or gets brighter without me touching anything. There's just so much going on that you can play with, either for grabbing stills or for introducing these kind of things into musical work, and discovering what is cool. Nice smoky blend again. Very subtle here. And this is another one. Just cool. All right, that's it. I may wire up some more touch points on this. I am unsure if I will do that. I may add one or two more things, but I'm running out of space. And take a look at the next video. I'm going to go into some of the technical aspects of what I'm doing to make these products long lasting for you and super cool, so that you can rely upon them, and maybe even feature some of the forthcoming products and designs that I'm doing. All right, thanks for staying tuned. That was lengthy as hell. Bye.